Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me today in the Shadows. This is the Patreon podcast for Beneath the Shadows, so thank you for being here. I appreciate you all so much. Today we are going to be talking about the Spaghetti House siege in Knightsbridge, London in 1975, and the events that occurred kind of before and around it, the reasons that it happened. Quick one today, but we're going to dive deep into the shadows of the Spaghetti House siege. So, let's get going. On the evening of September 28th, 1975, something happened, and I'm going to tell you in just a second. On the evening of September 28, 1975, the vibrant Knightsbridge district of London was poised to become the focal point of a national crisis. The Spaghetti House, a popular Italian eatery, was about to shift from a hub of fine dining to the dramatic stage of a 6-day hostage standoff that would grip the nation and capture global attention. The Spaghetti House siege stands as one of the most intense and politically charged criminal events in London's history at the time. Taking place in late September 1975, the 6-day standoff unfolded in the heart of the city, capturing the public's attention and raising awareness of the racial and socioeconomic issues that underpinned the event. In a time marked by political activism, economic decline, and racial tensions, the incident was more than a botched robbery. It was a powerful symbol of the struggles faced by Britain's black community. This episode delves into the lives of those involved, their motivations, the socio-political climate of London, and the complex police tactics that brought the siege to an end without bloodshed. The mid-1970s was a turbulent era for Britain. Economic hardship, increasing racial tensions, and a rapidly shifting social landscape set the stage for political unrest. London, a diverse metropolis, had become the focal point for immigration, particularly from former British colonies in the Caribbean, Africa, and South Asia. This influx led to rapid demographic changes that made the city a melting pot of cultures, but also a site of discrimination, inequality, and tension. Economic conditions in the UK were dire, with high inflation, increasing unemployment, and industrial strikes unsettling the country. The political landscape was unstable, and a series of oil crises contributed to the rising cost of living, squeezing working class and immigrant communities the hardest. These pressures exacerbated existing racial tensions, and black and immigrant communities were frequently subjected to racial profiling, housing discrimination, and high levels of police scrutiny. The Black Liberation Front emerged during this period as a response to the inequalities. Inspired by the civil rights movement in the United States and groups like the Black Panther Party, the BLF, Black Liberation Front, sought to address racial injustices in Britain. Its goals included fighting for social and economic equality, opposing police brutality, and fostering a sense of empowerment among Black Britons. Many young activists within the BLF became frustrated by what they saw as the limitations of peaceful protest and sought more radical means to fund their activities. The Black Liberation Front was a revolutionary organization in London during the 1960s and 70s, formed to address systemic racism, inequality, and the marginalization of black communities in the United Kingdom. The arrival of the Windrush generation in 1948 brought significant numbers of Caribbean, African, and South Asian immigrants to the UK. However, they faced widespread racism, discrimination in housing, employment, and policing, including social exclusion. Inspired by the civil rights movements in the United States and the anti-colonial struggles in Africa and the Caribbean, black activists in Britain sought to address local injustices while aligning with global liberation movements. The BLF was founded in 1971 as part of this broader wave of activism. It built on earlier organizations like the Universal Colored People's Association, the UCPA, and sought to provide a more radical, pan-Africanist response to the challenges faced by black people in Britain. The BLF emphasized unity among African-descended people worldwide, viewing their struggles as interconnected. Their organization was explicitly anti-capitalist, linking economic exploitation to radical oppression. It advocated for black empowerment and autonomy, rejecting reliance on the state or mainstream political systems to bring about change. The BLF worked to raise awareness about black history, culture, and the structural nature of racism. The BLF published Grassroots, a newsletter addressing issues of racism, police brutality, and black empowerment. It also disseminated literature on black history and Pan-Africanist ideology. The group established community programs such as educational workshops, legal aid for those facing discrimination, and support for victims of police violence. The BLF organized and participated in protests against police brutality, poor housing conditions, and other forms of systemic injustice. It connected with liberation movements across Africa, the Caribbean, and the United States, fostering alliances with groups like the Black Panthers and African National Congress. The British government closely monitored the BLF and other black activist groups, viewing them as subversive. The Special Branch and MI5 often infiltrated such organizations. Differences in strategy and ideology sometimes caused tension within the group and the broader black liberation movement in Britain. The mainstream media often portrayed the BLF as militant and radical, further alienating them from broader public support. The BLF played a pivotal role in raising awareness about racism and advocating for systemic change in the UK. Its efforts laid the groundwork for future black-led movements. The emphasis on cultural pride and education inspired a generation of black Britons to reclaim, yeah, that's what I'm going for. The emphasis on cultural pride, holy fuck. The emphasis on cultural pride and education inspired a generation of holy shit. The emphasis on cultural pride and education inspired a generation of black Britons to reclaim their heritage and challenge racial stereotypes. Racial. I know. Racial stereotypes. Many of the issues the BLF fought against, such as racial profiling, economic inequality, and lack of representation, remain pressing concerns today. The Black Liberation Front's legacy is a testament to the enduring struggle for justice and equality in Britain, echoing the broader global fight against racism and colonialism during the mid-20th century. Each of the three men involved in the Spaghetti House siege had unique personal backgrounds, but shared a common sense of frustration with British society and its treatment of black citizens. Here's a closer look at their lives and the past that brought them together for the ill-fated heist. Franklin Davies was the unofficial leader of the group and the driving force behind the Spaghetti House robbery. Born and raised in London to Jamaican parents, Davies grew up witnessing the struggles of the black community firsthand. As a young adult, he became more involved in activism and joined the Black Liberation Front, the BLF, where he encountered like-minded individuals who shared his vision of a more equitable society. Davies' role in the BLF helped shape his political beliefs as he became increasingly influenced by anti-colonial thinkers like Frantz Fanon and Malcolm X. He believed the systemic racism and colonial legacies still shackled black Britons, and he viewed the police and British government as oppressive institutions. Over time, Davies' frustration with peaceful protest grew, and he came to believe that more extreme actions were needed to fund the movement and attract attention to their cause. He convinced himself that the robbery of the Spaghetti House, a symbolic strike against a system he saw as exploitive, was justified. Anthony Monroe shared a similar background to Davies. He too had grown up in a working-class area of London, where poverty and discrimination were part of daily life. Monroe had experienced racism in his personal life and professional life, leading him to question the fairness of British society. Like Davies, he joined the Black Liberation Front, finding a community that understood his grievances and encouraged him to channel his anger into activism. Monroe's political awakening was intense, and he quickly became a devoted member of the BLF. Although less charismatic than Davies, Monroe was known for his reliability and dedication to the cause. He saw the Spaghetti House heist as an opportunity to fund their mission and send a message about the injustices black Britons faced. Wesley Dick? Yes, fucking Wesley Dick. That bastard. Dickhead. Fucking Wes Dick. Wonder if he ever went by Wes. Just Wes Dick. The third member of the group had a similar trajectory, shaped by experiences of racial inequality and a sense of being an outsider in his own country. Born in the Caribbean, Dick moved to the UK as a young man in search of better opportunities. However, his dreams of prosperity quickly faded as he faced discrimination in housing, employment, and daily interactions. For Dick, it's the way I started that sentence. For Dick, the BLF offered a support network and a way to fight back against the system. Unlike Davies, he wasn't naturally inclined towards violence, but felt that society had left him with few options. When the opportunity arose to participate in the Spaghetti House robbery, Dick was hesitant, but ultimately agreed. I don't know if that's a common thing. Dick usually isn't hesitant. He's a, strong-headed Dick, usually. Dick was hesitant, but ultimately agreed, viewing it as a means of supporting a cause that promised hope and change for the black community. On September 28, 1975, the trio set out to rob the headquarters of the Spaghetti House restaurant at 21 Knightsbridge, a central London location where cash from the restaurants was collected and stored on weekends. Their plan was simple: enter the office, seize the cash, estimated to be around 13,000 euros, over 136,000 euros in 2024 here, and make a quick escape. Weapons, As they entered the building and brandished their weapons, they were surprised by the presence of more staff members than they had anticipated. 9 employees were in the building, and panic ensued. During the chaos, while moving the employees to the basement of the establishment, one of the staff members managed to slip away out of a back door and call the police. Within minutes, law enforcement surrounded the building, effectively trapping the robbers inside with their hostages. The police response was swift and strategic. Officers from the Metropolitan Police quickly established a perimeter around the building, sealing off all exits and preventing the robbers from escaping. With no way out, Davies, Monroe, and Dick decided to take the staff members hostage, hoping that they could use them as bargaining chips to negotiate their freedom. Inside the building's cramped basement, conditions deteriorated rapidly. Tensions were high, and the hostages were terrified, unsure whether their captors would resort to violence. The robbers attempted to communicate their demands to police, calling for safe passage out of the country. In exchange, they promised the safe release of the hostages. Davies, in particular, tried to frame their actions as a political protest, not merely a crime, and demanded media coverage to share their grievances with the public. The police, led by Superintendent Robert Huntley, approached the siege cautiously. London had recently faced several violent incidents related to political activism and unrest, and authorities were determined to avoid bloodshed. Huntley and his team employed a strategy of patience and negotiation, understanding that a direct assault could result in unnecessary casualties. September 28, 1975. The first day of the siege saw the police establishing contact with the robbers. Negotiators began working to understand the captors' demands, all while attempting to keep them calm. The robbers reiterated their demand for safe passage and began framing their actions as a statement against racial injustice. The police, however, remained noncommittal, trying to buy time and assess the situation. As night fell, tensions rose inside the building. The hostages, trapped in the basement without adequate food or water, were beginning to feel the psychological drain. Police attempted to provide basic necessities, but the robbers, particularly Davies, remained suspicious and were hesitant to accept any offers of aid. On the second day, the police intensified their negotiation tactics. They understood that keeping the robbers awake and anxious could wear down their resolve. Officers made subtle noises and movements outside the building to unsettle the captors, hoping to instill a sense of isolation and exhaustion. Negotiators continued engaging the robbers in long conversations, probing their motivations, and appealing to their better nature in hopes of securing a peaceful resolution. Meanwhile, the robbers allowed one of the hostages to communicate with the police, a gesture they hoped would demonstrate their willingness to cooperate. This allowed the police to confirm the hostages' safety and provided insights into the robbers' psychological state, which negotiators used to tailor their approach. By the third day, the robbers were feeling the pressure. After hours of negotiation, they agreed to release 2 hostages as a goodwill gesture. This was a significant win for the police, as it not only improved the situation inside of the building, but also suggested that the robbers were open to further negotiation. The release provided the police with valuable information about the captors' conditions, revealing the cramped and deteriorating environment in the basement. The release also encouraged negotiators to continue their strategy of patience, knowing that the robbers were growing weary. Police shifted their focus to maintaining dialogue with Davies, the group's leader, recognizing that his political motivations could potentially be appealed to in order to end the siege. The 4th and 5th days were marked by the gradual... What the fuck am I talking about today? The 4th and 5th days were marked by the gradual weakening of the robbers' mental state. The police maintained their pressure, limiting communication and subtly manipulating the environment to keep the captors anxious. The robbers' food supplies were dwindling, and the cramped conditions were taking a physical toll on everyone inside. Negotiators suggested various nonviolent resolutions, appealing to the captors' humanity and promising fair treatment if they surrendered. Davies began to waver, realizing that their original plan was no longer feasible. However, he was reluctant to surrender without a guarantee of safety, fearing police retribution. Finally, on October 3rd, the robbers' resolve collapsed. Exhausted and facing no viable alternative, Davies agreed to surrender, provided that the police would ensure the group's safety. After tense negotiations, all 3 men exited the building and were immediately taken into custody. The hostages were released unharmed, bringing the 6-day ordeal to a peaceful end. And yeah, all 3 of them didn't just come out one at a time and get taken into custody. 2 of them came out, Wesley Dick and Anthony Monroe, and Davies actually stayed behind. Davies shot himself in the stomach. I don't know if he was trying to kill himself or trying to make a political statement. I don't know exactly what his point was in that, but he shot himself in the stomach as the other 2 exited the building, and he was taken into custody afterwards. He was treated at the hospital. He ended up living. He was fine, but taken into custody after shooting himself in the stomach. The Spaghetti House siege captured national attention and sparked debate about race, class, and policing in Britain. The incident highlighted the desperation of marginalized communities and the lengths to which some individuals felt compelled to go in pursuit of change. Although the robbery failed, it forced the public to confront issues of racial inequality and social injustice. All 3 men were subsequently convicted and sentenced to prison, with their sentences reflecting the gravity of their crime as well as their perceived political motives. I believe it was 18 years. At least I know one of them got 18 years, which I believe was Monroe. And I'm guessing they all got similar sentences. So they got the law laid down hard on them for this armed robbery and their political motivated ways. I'm guessing they were just charged with armed robbery, but I'm not 100% sure. I didn't look into the actual charges behind it, just this event as it happened. The police response, particularly Superintendent Huntley's patient negotiation tactics, was widely praised as a model of restraint and effective crisis management. The Spaghetti House siege was an extraordinary event that reflected the complex social landscape of 1970s Britain. For Franklin Davies, Anthony Monroe, and Wesley Dick, the heist was not just about money. It was a desperate bid for recognition, a plea for justice, and a symbolic act of defiance. Today, the siege remains as a poignant reminder of the struggle for equality and the enduring impact of racial and economic injustice. And that's the story of the Spaghetti House siege. I do appreciate you joining me here today in The Shadows, the Patreon podcast for Beneath the Shadows. I'm your host, Travis Fenn. This has been so wonderful, and I always appreciate you joining me. Thank you for fucking being here, my shadow people. Thank you for having the best fucking mindset in the world. You're all wonderful. You're all fucking fantastic people. Go follow the social media pages on Instagram and TikTok. And other than that, have a great fucking day. Have a beautiful fucking week. And, peace out. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow.